meeting with our conflict of interest statement. As the Surrey County Board of Elections, we have a duty to avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict with respect to any matters coming before our board today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of a conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter. We have our minutes from our October the 8th meeting before you for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion to approve and we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion for the approval of the minutes as written? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. As the minutes are going around for signature, I'd like to open our public forum portion of our meeting that we have at all of our meetings. Time for anyone to come before the Board of Elections and speak. Any topic pertaining to elections? There's no one present. Is there anyone online? No one online. Thus, I will close the public forum portion of our meeting. And at this time, as I did last week, I'd like to ask that we may add to the agenda for today another closed session pertaining to personnel. And this is not on the agenda, but I'd like to ask that we be able to add that to the agenda.
Need a motion to add that item or is it just by consensus?
Second that motion.
We'll take it as a motion and we will second. Is there any discussion on adding a closed session to today's agenda? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. We will add a closed session.
Okay.
Moving into the larger portion of the day, absentee ballots.
I did have a text from Jimmy at 4:44. Getting my car at the airport, should be there less than an hour.
You'll be here.
Okay, so today's absentee statistics. We have a total of 1,342 ballots not returned. That number includes 1,289 civilian, 22 military, and 31 overseas.
Excuse me, repeat the civilian number?
1,289. 1,289.
I only show
22,
186 civilian. Oh, that's returned, okay, not returned.
for a total of 1,342. And then ballots returned not okay is 45. All civilian. Ballots returned okay, we have 410 civilian, 10 military, and 16 overseas, for a total of 436. And the grand total is 1,823.
1823.
Yes, sir.
Thank
And then, if we may, we're gonna do the affidavit review pending first today. If the board approves all 22, these are the ones, of course, with photo ID exception forms. If the approve all 22, then we're gonna go in immediately and update, print that report instead of doing it the way we've been doing it.
Post week.
Yes,
Week by.
yes. So we're gonna do that first instead of do the random and all that good stuff, if y'all are good with that.
I don't think we would have a problem.
Okay. If we can have a bipartisan team, just, check the seals and everything first. Sydney, please.
Seals on the machine, seals on the phone.
Randy, you want to just start those that way?
And then, for your. All right, 295,370 and 295,369.
And
700. I'll record all those, and our closing account of the machine was 243, but once it opens up, we'll do a tape and I'll show you that. Thank y'all.
We're starting the pending photo ID review that has been cleared by staff. They're going around now.
Number 70 when it comes up. Need to
you
look
look
at
at the
that.
signature on this one. Drew, did you look at the signature on this one?
On it, Ian.
Double check it.
Okay, so the count last week was 243, the opening count is 243.
Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Leave this here just with the public count.
You have to check when this
Open
says
it.
incarceration.
Okay.
Michelle, you have to check, to see what they're there for, or if
Well,
they've been convicted, or.
We did that when we did the absentee ballot request.
Okay, so
Mhm.
you knew
Put it
they
on
was
the
going
front
to
end.
someone
On
to
the
vote.
front end before they get a ballot.
Okay.
Because there were some that, some weren't registered either, but yeah.
Oh, you're talking about incarceration, but they haven't been convicted yet.
Right. They're
Or
waiting.
or they're under a misdemeanor.
No. Let's keep having. Which they get rid of problems. Or the exceptional ones. Wait. About 5 minutes per ballot, so stand in.
Say that the form could have all information on it, it'd be displayed inside the. window.
Well, we found out other counties do full sheets and fold it, and it's like, well, you have to open it. Instead of a half sheet.
Send it to Bill.
Uh, Hey, Paul, just keep passing it.
No, apply for the photo ID, but have not received.
Probably from DMV. not from us.
And that's okay.
How many of those? I
That's
lost count.
paper copies we cannot
20.
accept. What'd you say, Paul?
How many of those were there? I lost count.
22. You hear what I said? Each one of those takes at least 5 minutes to check in, check social security, driver's license, and then make notes.
Oh, you mean, oh, yeah.
Takes
I know.
so much time.
Man, and I can, all of those for, we've got some information to go
Yeah.
back to, social security number, other information. When you've got one and it simply is nothing there. Applied but not received. Then what are we banking on?
It's up to the board.
But it's, I mean,
But you did confirm social security as being with that person's name.
If it's a section where they don't have to put the social security or the driver's license. And applied but not yet received is not one that you have. The reasonable impediment that you have to check social or driver's license.
So that particular one did not have social or.
I don't know what he's holding, but unless they also checked, sometimes they check 2 or 3 reasons. But if,
I saw only.
yeah, no, see, this one was one that
That's
is
the one I'm questioning.
just a signature, and I applied for photo ID, but have not received it. So see,
what
you
I
don't
thought.
have to do that. That's only if you check section 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one I looked at, and applied for.
So is that reasonable impediment?
It is. Mm-hmm.
That is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the check marks.
Mm-hmm. That is a reasonable impediment.
Okay.
See the social security number and the signature on the back, if that matches, then you have to, like, my feeling is you should send.
Well,
But we can't check. We can't
signatures are
compare
not
signature.
Yeah, that's not in our purview.
yet.
It's out there.
It's maybe coming. What
Get
is
paid
it?
more,
More
they
than
won't expect me to be a signature expert.
Yeah.
Send me to school for that.
Yep. Yeah. It'll come back up. Yeah.
my signature at the first of this meeting. Those minutes compared to the last signature that may come across as far as the number of votes.
You probably noticed that with mine as well. On those.
It might not look the same. The face, the photo ID,
Well, the way I was taught is you think every letter you write your name, you think the B, A, U, the L. you
To
think
take time.
as you're writing. That's how I was taught signature. It's changed over the 80
If
years.
you name William Andrew Poindexter, then
Poindexter itself.
I think that's the first one of those I've seen.
We've had,
That's not had any, but not had any other information on, other than just,
no, there's been a few, not that recent,
yeah,
but there's
that's what
been
I'm
a
saying.
few that.
Uh, I didn't realize that it could. But if that is a. No, okay.
Got
If that's within the scope of what has been,
approved.
then if it is, then and it is, so, okay. I assume you need a motion.
Yes, sir.
With that assurance, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. We accept these 22 ballots to be counted with our absentee ballots today.
Motion to accept the 22,
Second.
and we do have a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. We'll accept the 22 ballots. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Stacked them in fives and a two there, so it could be the right candidate.
Thank you. All are good. We'll open these and put them in first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here confirming what my doctor told me.
You don't want me in that chair then.
Oh, I can't hear it on my lip. I don't have to read.
Mark, I haven't quite got through
Misery
that
with
yet,
you.
but I'm getting there.
It's a lot. That's a lot. Don't ask me to quote chapter and verse, so.
Well, I picked through the index, I picked something out of the index I want to read about, and that's what I go to when I read that. The only way to read something like that.
Well, I will say that some of these 5 lawsuits that have been filed that don't directly impact you, but we gotta stay on top of, they raise some interesting issues that make you, that force you to do some homework. Got one more to talk about, one of the reasons I'm here. And update you on the others, which is not a lot, but something.
I was reading on the federal court, the federal judge had said on the selfie, photo, selfie.
So this lady had her identification. She also had filled this out, but this was with her ballot sealed up. So
Oh, it's on the inside?
on the inside. But she had filled out the affidavit review pending, but she had driver's license and socials. I'm just letting you all know, I'm gonna stick this with it, but it was after.
What court is the one that's stating that the makeup of the board? What court is it before?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the first one filed. And it's, unless something's changed since the last time I looked, which was very recent, that one is still just on hold. The judge issued an order staying that until further notice. And that further notice hasn't happened.
So it's not before an official court?
It's before a court, but the court has said,
Just in limbo.
we're putting it on hold until I judge decide that it's time to hear.
I think the legislative leaders tried to push it forward one step to go to the North Carolina Supreme Court without passing through the appellate.
Yeah, we can't do that.
And yeah, there is an emergency way to do that. And when it defines emergency, it sets the bar really, really high. Now, you'd have to have someone like Helene going through downtown Raleigh.
It's held up at the appellate court level right now.
Yeah, and it's just there,
It's not been calendared yet.
right? Not even calendar.
Probably next year.
All right. Those are going. Do you all want me to pull the 20 at random? to look
Please,
at?
let's do.
Okay.
Want to do 6 or 8?
Pardon?
I think, well, how many is she pulling at random?
The number that we agreed upon, 20 for each meeting.
double duty here?
Temporary,
Huh?
temporarily. That's what we got you on here for, I thought.
Yeah.
How's
I was doing
Carolyn?
double duty all day today.
Carolyn doing okay?
I was under a machine, on a machine, running a machine.
If you weren't here, we wouldn't have opened this meeting yet. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh.
Yeah. Mhm.
It just accepted, right?
To accept it, yeah. There's the end.
Budget.
You didn't. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Does the board mind if we go ahead and open the remaining recommend approval civilian?
Keep things moving good.
Yeah.
I know.
David, pending review.
You got signature there, Paul.
Thank you. That's in report manager.
have one here that wanted to make sure that they were, they've got their key witnesses. And then they've got a notary public.
That was a first.
What? They got a what?
They have their two witnesses signing, witnessing their signature. But then also a notary was present and the notary
Actually,
signed it
there
to you.
was one, that one, when I was thinking about, there's one.
They want to be counted,
made-
that's for sure.
They made their witnesses put their license in. So everybody had a copy of the license. Three on the page. I was like. oh,
Everybody's gotta be covered. Remember him?
Called and she hadn't put up anything.
Yeah.
Oh, I just didn't think.
We're counting printing.
I called the lady yesterday and I said,
Oh, yeah.
Notary.
I was
We got
gonna-
notary,
"Sign it. You didn't get a notary or
We're
two
counting.
witnesses.
Printing of
I
the
think that applied
signature.
to me.
Did you ask why you didn't think it was?
I wanted to- The thing I was thinking,
Oh, yeah.
hey, it's honest.
Oh, yeah. Randy Wall.
There's just one copy of that. and one copy of the report.
I'm sorry.
One copy of the report.
Three.
And make sure our print, sorry.
Yes,
That's
okay.
right. This, but no.
You know, whenever you administer oaths to a member of the family. I just want, I bet, nothing I've seen.
What is over, right?
No, they do their own family. I mean, like, our title or anything.
You'd have
I'm scrolling through my files to see if I've got the,
Anything that's with your family.
yeah, I think I think you can't notarize something that you have a conflict of interest in. So I think you could notarize something like this and it'd be valid, but something like a car title, maybe
Have a
not,
title.
because
If the property is involved, well, probably.
It's their property too. They can't notarize their own signature. can
yeah,
they?
absolutely not, yeah.
Did you say this one about a stroke?
sometime back.
The
Yeah. Oh,
Brilliant.
I hate
There's some in here that were MAC team and I could tell by the signature, but that's not one of them. I mean,
Well,
by
that's
the
what- I know that's-
witnesses.
person that both Dwayne and I have known for a long time.
Drew too.
you know, well, if you know how to read.
Yeah.
Had a stroke. He went into the hospital, have a minor surgery, had a headache. During the surgery, he had a stroke. Doing all right. Got recovered, but it's
He always had a theory about how Bill Hall was doing, if somebody run against him in a primary, he'd always say how he was doing the call rate through the primary. I don't see the correlation. You know, there wouldn't be nobody running against him in the primary. It was incredible back then. He thought the world of him, but he. Gentlemen, ladies. Red. Butterfinger.
Any of those. What is it? Butterfinger?
Really?
I know we got quick, probably in that bag earlier today. So, one of those, I can put in those.
Or what now?
Quick,
We,
quick.
that's Butterfinger. Yeah, don't, not like you did. Boy.
Well, then, I was going good there, and then all of a sudden I get something that. It was getting all up, and I turned it on, so it will go a little further.
Every shopping day for Christmas. 70.
Is it that many?
I would think, is there that few?
That many for me. Carolyn got the, her knee surgery for long, so. Here we go with the bipartisan approval.
Really, we don't have to have approval on those.
I know, but everybody, I mean, probably okay with it.
20 sample ballots that went around the table. Everything. Yep.
That's this one.
This is our
All right, thanks.
20 sample.
I don't mean to be a hog here, Paul, get what you want.
I don't need.
They just put them in front of me because they think I'm a hog, which I am. It's too early to eat supper when I come in here, but now I'm getting hungry when I'm sitting here.
I'm a dark chocolate for elect dark chocolate.
You clean that there.
He looked over his shoulder and said, somebody said dark chocolate.
Would it be an efficient use of our time if I went ahead and gave you the update on the lawsuit while this is
Certainly.
happening?
I think that would be an excellent idea.
Um, and there's not just a whole lot to report, but there is one more lawsuit that has been filed, similar to the plaintiffs is similar. It's two individual voters and the state Republican Party and the national Republican Party. This one has to do with, overseas voters. And what the lawsuit is saying is that, okay, there's a federal statute that says overseas voters should be able to vote. And it's geared towards the military, but if you look at the language, it refers to military overseas and overseas voters who aren't military. And but that it focuses on there's a federal statute that talks about providing opportunities for overseas voters to vote by ballot, not mail-in ballot. And North Carolina has a similar law talking about the process of overseas ballot. What the lawsuit is saying is that North Carolina has a residency requirement. Like virtually every other state has some sort of residency requirement. Different states define residency differently. The statute has a very generic, general definition of residency. A lot of that is established through lawsuits. I think that's because it kind of has to be that way, because if you're too specific in your definition, you can eliminate things that are clearly are residency, because residency can be complicated. The federal statute basically says that residency for a child of military and use the residency of the last domicile of their parents. And looking at the statute and looking at the lawsuit, the only category of people that I can see is impacted by that basically are children of voters, including military, who have not lived in the US. And what this lawsuit says is if you're a US citizen but has never lived in North Carolina, you don't meet North Carolina's residency, so therefore you shouldn't be able to vote. Now it doesn't, that scenario poses a problem in which the lawsuit is saying you should disenfranchise some American citizens. And it doesn't give us sort of a work around that issue. So I think that's a lot where the tension is going to be, is a couple things. One, can the feds define residency in such a way that it includes somebody that's never actually lived in a state? North Carolina is one of the states through and it does it through its state statute, has defined a voter overseas whose parents have North Carolina residency are in fact residents of North Carolina. The lawsuit basically says that is in conflict with the constitutional definition of residency. So that's going to be where this lawsuit sort of circles around, is how you find residency. Does the North Carolina Constitution define residency in such a way that it trumps the statute? And then there's a secondary question, I think, is the 14th Amendment prevent the North Carolina Constitution. If you find that, does the 14th Amendment prevent the North Carolina Constitution from defining residency in such a way that it disenfranchises people? I think those are, frankly, I think those are kind of interesting questions. I've sort of given you a little bit of my opinion on the legal strengths of some of these other lawsuits. This one poses some questions to me that I think are hard to answer. And I think probably would benefit from a judge, somebody in a black robe needs to talk about these issues. I'm not going to tell you where I would fall if it were me on this or any of these others, but I can tell you where I think some relative strengths are. It's an interesting issue, and it's one that I think goes into a couple of areas where there's not really anything decided, because nobody's actually sort of looked at residency side by side between 14th Amendment and the North Carolina Constitution. Now, I think it's also an open question. If a statute defines residency in some way, and all the North Carolina Constitution says is you got to be a resident, and there are cases that have said what they think that means. But I don't think what the Constitution says has never been looked at side by side from this statute. So I think there's a lot of open questions. I think that this General Assembly can in circumstances, and maybe in this one, say what they think is the definition, and that is in fact the definition, because the General Assembly has said that's what that word means. But it's a little different when you're talking about residency, and a lot different when you're talking about constitutional interpretation. So that one just got filed. And again, it's no likelihood of any kind of this one, almost zero likelihood of any kind of resolution before the election, especially if you argue that the election's already started, which I think is a pretty good argument. Two updates in all the other cases, which is nothing substantial has happened in all of the two ones that are the challenges for the General Assembly's changes that are on hold. Those are still on hold, like we talked about earlier. The 4 lawsuits, now 5 lawsuits that were filed against the State Board of Elections. Nothing substantial has happened in any of those. In 2 of them, they have been transferred from state court to federal court. The one that talks about the opening of the envelope, there's one lawsuit that it's basically in North Carolina, if it comes to this office in a sealed envelope, and you open that sealed envelope and there is the mail-in ballot envelope that's unsealed, you can count that vote. That lawsuit has been transferred up to federal courts. And the lawsuit that talked about, okay, there were all of these certifications, all of these applications that didn't have the proper, I'm a citizen certification on it. And the state board of elections said, well, rather than redo all those, we have the fail safe of checking identification at voting time, so they'll be, the cure will come at that point. And according to the lawsuit, that's 225,000 applications that are impacted by that. That lawsuit has been moved from state court to federal court. And as of very recently, a hearing date has been set for hearing the motion to dismiss in that lawsuit. Typically, somebody files a lawsuit, you have to answer within 30 days unless you get an extension, and that answer can include, and almost always does include, a motion to dismiss saying there's nothing here. We don't have to go through a full trial, a full discovery. You can just look at the law and dismiss this case. Like I said, that's routinely done in lawsuits. It's you know, the cliche is it's first bite of the apple. The cliche I've never thought made a ton of sense, but that's still what they call it. So that motion to dismiss will be heard October 17th is the scheduled date for that one. And that's in the one about the certification and the voter applications. Even if, okay, now, if the federal judge grants the motion to dismiss, then that case is gone. But if you lose a motion to dismiss, that doesn't really mean very much of anything. It just says the trial is going to go on because you have discovery, you have further cases. Now, in my line of work, when you're talking about governmental actions, it is a lot more statute based. So a whole lot more cases get disposed of one way or the other at the motion to dismiss stage than in most cases. So it's not insubstantial what's going to happen on the 17th if it's held according to that schedule. That'll be a pretty significant discussion. And if it's going to get denied, there's a good shot that it happens at a motion to dismiss. So that's not an insignificant hearing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing's over. If you're a plaintiff, your lawyer is still telling you nothing's going to be decided until after the election, unless, of course, we lose early. You know, if it's kicked out, the motion to dismiss, it's gone. So there's no chance of, if you're a plaintiff, there's no chance of winning before the election ends. So that's an update on everything. All the cases have motions to dismiss filed. The only one that I've seen that has this, that actually scheduled a hearing is the one, which is the fourth lawsuit filed on the certification. That's your legal update.
Wow.
The plaintiff's best hope is to not lose before the election.
That's, yeah, if you're a plaintiff, nothing good happens until well down the road. No matter what your lawsuit is.
You know, my God, those children would have hadn't voted, wouldn't they?
And I will say one thing. Interestingly, one of the there were two. Most of these cases, they don't attach any exhibits to them, and that sort of shows that they're going on a mainly legal argument, not a lot of faction. There's not a lot of dispute on facts. But this one had two attachments to support the finding that overseas voters who couldn't prove residency were voting. And one of those exhibits was the letter that at least 4 of you are familiar with. I don't think you've seen it yet. That came from the Hendersonville Board of Election person who wrote to lots of office holders, Republican office holders, and other persons of some significance in the Republican Party, with a very, an inarguably very partisan letter saying, you guys got to do something or we are going to lose this election. Which, my mind, and I'm not, and this is a legal opinion, not a political one, I think clearly violates Article 4A of the statutes against partisan activities for Board of Election members. I don't know what's happened to that individual since that letter went out. But one of the complaints that she put in her letter was this forward voting, and it with the evidence that the attorney put in the case wasn't her letter, but was her letter with the response from the State Board of Elections that went paragraph by paragraph and responded to those issues. One of the issue with the forward voters is the letter asserted that there were thousands upon thousands of overseas voting ballots that were being received in Henderson County. And response included, we've looked at here's the data, it's been 150. So I thought including that letter, especially including the version of the letter that had the State Board of Elections response, was an interesting legal choice. And I'm only telling you that because I think it's an interesting thing to know.
And who is the plaintiff on that one?
It is the State Republican Party, the National Republican Party, and 2 individuals named Kivett and Fowler, who
Okay.
I think are both they're from down east.
Okay.
One is Salemburg citizen, I remember, but I don't remember where the other one's from. As things happen, I'll be joining you on some of your Tuesdays and letting you know. But again, as of right now, there's nothing that you guys need to do other than just be aware of all this.
If any of the decision in the lawsuit in the federal court or what could be in the state takes place after the election, that does not impact what we're doing for the ballot submitted today or between now and pre-canvass.
Yeah, I don't think this is an important thing for you guys to hear, because I think you guys know it, but it is important to note that none of these lawsuits change the law. Not until a judge issues an order is anything different. So you guys just need to keep on trucking exactly the way you've been doing. And if a decision comes down the road later, that's when the law changes. And so nothing you've done can be undone. And even then, let's say if one of these matters does get heard before the election and the plaintiffs win, or full win or partial win, and the judge says, I agree with that, the order can still say, I agree with that. This order will take effect now, or that order could say this order will take effect sometime after the election. So it is possible for a judge to say, yes, this is all true, but it doesn't impact this election. It will only on an ongoing basis from X day. So even if it's heard and decided before the election, it may not have any impact on the election. Definitely not retroactively or even at all.
Yeah, but also even if the decision was positive, a countersuit can be filed to challenge it anyway.
Well, and an order, or it can be appealed and that order be stayed until that appeal's heard. And you all know how long appeals can take. And there's no precise timing on appeals. They take however long they take. And it's all within the absolute discretion of the courts, how long that takes. So, yes, every lawsuit is a long haul, and you're still in the very early stages of 7 long hauls.
Any further questions from the board, to Attorney Payne? We appreciate you being here and bringing us up to date on that, and knowing yet what's ahead of the courts and the state board and then down to the county.
It is nothing if not interesting.
Mr. Payne, I have one question.
Yeah.
In all your years of experience, have you ever seen an election cycle with this many lawsuits filed?
No. I think I've used this phrase before. Somebody more cynical than I has said some on occasion that there is a tactic du jour that pops up in different elections. One election, residency, we had in Guilford County, we had 8 residency challenges. And those all could have turned into appeals to go up. But it was the tactic du jour. And so that was a very, very busy election for me and the board. But it didn't approach this.
Thank you, Jim.
I think Paul Cox would add to that. Never.
Yeah.
Never before.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's and some of the lawsuits that do pop in that have election issues that are elections, usually they're not exclusively the state board of elections. Usually they say if this is going on here, we find a local board, and some local board is lucky enough to be a defendant, and their life gets a lot more complicated. And sometimes it's almost random. It feels like it's throw a dart on the board and say which local board of elections is going to get included in this. But all of these lawsuits have all been exclusively against the state board and not included in the local boards.
I think it's the same one you're talking about to us today has just been filed also in Pennsylvania and Michigan as well. So
And there's yes. And there are sort of varying versions of some of these lawsuits and uniquely ones that are filed. Nobody's again, somebody more political than I might note that nobody's filed in Alabama or California.
they seem to be in battleground
Yeah,
states somehow or another.
I will add to that if I may. I read early in the week, Monday, that the Department of Justice has filed suit against the state of Alabama's head of elections because the state has removed non-citizens from their voter rolls so close to the election.
Oh, within the
90
45,
days.
90 days.
Virginia was also included.
It were. And the state's arguments are they're in compliance with the law because non-citizens should not have been on the voter rolls to begin with. So that's the basis of their argument, that they have the right to remove those voters from the voter rolls because they weren't legal voters to begin with. So it's
You have-
interesting.
You have some states that allow non-citizens to vote in local and state elections, but
Mhm.
not in national elections.
Yeah. I think
And
that's.
that's
where
the lawsuit right
That's
there.
the argument.
They don't want
Right.
them voting in the national election.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's where that argument.
How do you differentiate?
It, and the good thing about the fact that we've got 50 states is you do have 50 different laboratories and you do have 50 different ways to do things. And so you can see what works sometimes. But it's really, really hard to extrapolate what happened from an Alabama lawsuit to what you got to do here. You'll notice that that when I talk to you guys, I won't talk about anything other than North Carolina because it's the other states are just different enough that you shouldn't read too much into it. Now, there are a lot of interesting lawsuits going on in other states and a lot of individual actions that pop up that you'll see. A lot of them are sort of cautionary tales about what not to do. But I will tell you guys those things because you guys aren't going to walk out to the sidewalk and grab a ballot box and carry it into your office.
Okay. Thank you for being here and bringing us forward to the front. Appreciate it.
And look, by the way, anytime a question pops up and you want to do something in between meetings, let me know. If it's something that I can handle by an email, I will send an email response. But I think I've told you guys before, if I send a response to one, it goes to everybody.
Thank you.
We have more ballots.
We have military and overseas.
By the way, that was, when she said that, that reminded me, when you had mentioned military children, that also would apply to the spouses of the military that are there deployed.
Yeah, it's
The spouses are able,
spouses can, by statute, spouses are assigned residency of their spouse if they were not military themselves.
so that's clear on the
Yeah.
federal side.
Yeah.
And that's why they were not included in the language by saying, specifically calling out children.
It's not 100% clear from the lawsuit exactly what the category of impacted folks. I think part of what they're saying is because you don't have this residential nexus, somebody that's shouldn't vote at all might vote. But the impacted class is pretty much children of overseas voters who have now obviously reached majority.
All right. Acceptable for Robin to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Robin, do you want to start doing the date? Mark, if you don't care.
We'll be glad to.
Mark, in there, call.
You mind if I call this time?
Just see my numbers there. Precinct there. It will be 4.
Okay, thank you.
Got a lot of them. Dylan,
No, just possibly only 2. We think these are real ballots. We'll see. I am not complaining.
Glad that both of our ballots have gone through and not.
Yeah.
I was
We've been
listening
lucky.
for the beeping over there and I didn't hear a whole lot.
No beat.
Rachel Hunt. Jackson. Jessica Holmes.
There, Chambers, Mark.
Well, when supposed to be doing
Natasha Marcus.
We got a remark.
a remark.
Get out there.
I'm the only one. I had this. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna make you pay for it.
Gracious.
Bethany Harris. Allison
In-
Reed.
in
Diet
Diet
Coke,
Coke.
you can do without the team.
Harold Jennings.
Doesn't
Mark,
matter.
okay. Don't say this out loud, but just,
Yeah.
see there,
Eldred. Eldred.
that's the precinct number right there, right there. Yep, B1. Yep.
Martin E. Boyd. Aaron Staley.
Donald
Badgett. Virginia B. Puckett. Bill Southern.
Mark Robin.
Let's see what Scott Needham.
You're okay of giving up the country.
Hal was him.
You don't have to get to sit.
No, there's no point.
Dan Bishop.
Harris.
Dave Smoke.
Randy Bourne.
Steve Crockett.
Amy Reeves Brand.
Mike Carter.
Judy Barn.
Luke Farley.
Well.
Dwayne, these are both ballots. Do you mind if I go get them?
Lissick.
They're actual ballots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deborah. Fred.
Yeah, Brad Grant.
David R. Hall.
Jefferson.
Calvin Vaughn. And Inst.
Now,
Mark this one.
yes, three, both is three, man. Eddie. Steve. Okay.
You know, run outside.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I noticed you turned that camera right on me after.
Right. Okay.
There you go, by the ballot, by the envelope.
That's all for our duty. That's all. Yes.
Thank you.
You.
The other two were ballots, so they're already in. And our total is 458.
Pardon me?
458. We ran 215 today. So if you subtract 215 from 458, that gives you the beginning count of 243. Wayne, would you like for me to start the reports going?
Yeah.
This first report is your report from last time after we
Hello?
accepted the review affidavit pending. And you'll sign it with the flags on it, so that we since the links. Okay.
That one lawsuit you brought up, I went, John McCain was born in the Panama Canal. And he never was a citizen in the state, I don't guess, really. Cause he went straight into the military.
Thank you.
That's a possible scenario. I don't think it happens a lot, but it happens that. You know, children of the military tend to, be children of lifetime military. And it's, you know, I'm curious just how big the population is of children of overseas voters who are citizens who never lived in a US state. I did check, North Carolina, current interpretation is the interpretation of 40 of the 50 states. I don't know exactly what the other 50, the other 10, I can count them, the other 10 say, but they don't have the, North Carolina's is the exact same interpretation.
39 others. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
The majority.
Looks like they can't be disenfranchised.
And well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I don't think anybody's ever ask the question, can you be a US citizen and not allowed to vote? Because you never resided in any of the 50 states.
I bet that number is greater than what most of us think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But your, parents' date of birth, state, actually, the state, the rule, I would think automatically rules their children's place of birth. And
The 40 states that are like North Carolina, your parents' last legal domicile
Later presidency.
is what creates the child's residency, even if the child had never lived. Here.
It creates the voter registration for the child. I mean, if they. Did they,
If
They have
that
to
child
register.
then applies to vote, according to that interpretation of law, their folks' last domicile
do what
is
they
is
use?
what they would use as the residence. You know, I mean, if they've lived their whole life in Ramstein or, they would still say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have no idea how large a population we're talking about that falls in that category. And until a couple of days ago, it never crossed my mind to figure out what that population is.
There was other station in Korea.
Yeah.
There was other station in Germany. And they're there.
Germany, most probably.
Yeah, I mean, huge.
There's where Indians.
Yeah.
I mean, live there.
I've got a friend that graduated high school, went to Germany, stayed in the military, never returned to the States, and he still gets a ballot. Because he never lost and gave up his US citizenship. His wife is German. She doesn't get a ballot,
Mm-hmm.
because she never became a US citizen. Their children can get a ballot.
And you know, like Ramstein and other places in Germany are such long established expat communities that it's not unusual for a kid to have grown up in a place, to
That's all
stay
they
in
know.
that place.
That's all they know.
Then after he left the military, went to work for British Airways. He never came back, but he still comes back once a year. He makes a trip back to the state and he leaves. I guess there's something about having to maintain citizenship or something rather than.
Now, they say in the military, they pay tax someplace. Yeah.
I didn't pay any taxes while I was in the.
Okay.
This, with the yellow flags, is reflective of the 5:38 PM. I've got it circled. That shows the 22 we read in. This report was reported at 3 o'clock today that we did.
That we,
So you'll have to sign both. This is before the pending review were accepted. That's accepted.
okay.
And then this is just your absentee stats for the day. And that will be.
But you had to be a naturalized born citizen to run for president, but he was naturalized born on an American. Post, yeah.
It's the automatic citizenship of birth that is a little bit unusual for the US compared to other countries. Children of citizens tend to be citizens wherever they're born. It's relatively it's not huge. It's the minority of countries that say if you're born here, it's automatic citizenship. You know, most of Europe, if you're born in Germany or I know Italy and Greece, you're not automatically a Greek citizen. It focuses more on parents.
There's so many countries right there in the space that covers our country.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure England does not have citizens get automatic by birth. It's gotta be at least one parent.
You see, that was the 14th Amendment.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's what's gonna be at play if this lawsuit has any play at all. It's gonna look at 14th Amendment versus North Carolina Constitution.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting interplay.
They were very unclear when they wrote the 14th Amendment. They allowed anybody born in the states.
And that's where a whole lot of lawsuits that in my career I've come up with is you can read a statute and say, well, this is what they were thinking. But we got a different fact situation to apply to that.
You folks
And all-
shoved that down our throat. You folks shoved that down our throat. We're a defeated nation.
Well. And it was.
Yeah.
It was not well thought out. So that.
Wide open. Well, the 14th Amendment can encompass about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
The,
only way to correct it would be with an amendment.
yeah, you can't. You can interpret, but you can't correct anything in the Constitution.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a few knows. But they're only 10 or 12 years old. I just replaced the lenses, cheap.
Gotten your money's worth, Paul.
But my competition finally retired. Sid Spencer.
Obstetrician.
Pardon me?
Did you say your obstetrician?
No, I said my optician.
Oh.
Thank-
Although I don't know today, maybe it could
I'm
be
sorry?
my optician.
4 years ago, we was having a packed house in here every time.
Now we have room.
Well, this goes
Not for long.
today.
Yeah, next week will be back over there.
We had to come over here to get through, or
Either way, well, at 5, yeah, you'll have to probably come through. We'll take you around the horn, or you can go in if it's open, yeah. If you get here early enough, it should be.
I don't know, my track record hasn't been great of late.
What's that?
I said, you mentioned about getting here
Oh.
early enough. I said, I'm sorry, my track record hasn't not been great of late.
Yeah, but
This stressful getting here late than getting here on time usually though. isn't it?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
this underscores to me an example of boring is good if you're a
Yes.
government.
Oh,
yeah,
it's good in elections.
Yeah, well, listen,
So,
having lived through not boring,
Yeah.
yes, this is a definite improvement.
and this is a sign that people are, that you guys are doing a good enough job that they're bored. So that's a good thing.
Don't.
If I were the person, I would say that, then I would.
Like that. We don't need.
That's what I would say.
Nothing else.
Not gonna say that.
Sit down, be quiet. Counselor.
we had that little room and that room was packed.
Sit
That was not COVID.
I picked one up in a
You remember, it
Swiss
was,
shop somewhere.
we're supposed to have been in big rooms because of COVID.
$2.
They
It
was-
made
We was all
17,
packed in a little room.
Really?
Oh, it came out of Germany. It was porcelain out of Germany.
Wow.
So we don't talk to y'all. Paul and Clark, do you all want to
Yeah.
double check her there so she can close the machine? Thank you, Dwayne.
Ready to turn some more? We're at about 50 here.
Do some of it after the- adjourn.
What airport did you go to? Greensboro?
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Well, I haven't been
don't
since
foresee
Sunday
it.
night. Dallas,
If there's anything that comes up, Michelle can give you a
Yeah.
email.
back to Greensboro.
Oh,
Get
You're a well-traveled person.
fair route.
We all good.
And I've
Sure,
crossed
like
Mississippi one time.
You don't need me.
What's that?
I've crossed, no, twice.
Oh, the Mississippi?
Mississippi River, New Orleans, yeah.
You don't need me. Anything else untoward? Before I say anything like this.
I learned in my philosophy class.
Put in a full day.
Jinx it.
Manual Cost for him, philosophy.
Oh,
He
yeah.
never traveled further than 75 miles from his home in Königsberg, Germany, East Prussia.
Interesting.
He never traveled further than 75 miles. Of course, people didn't travel back then.
No, she just, in the last year.
MLS, sorry, County.
Like the Chinese curse. May you live in it.
My grandmother had never been further than Burlington. She went there one time.
You know, it's like
I
so
will-
many
I will
things, unless you
correct
have a
that. I will
need.
correct it, because I forgot. I will
This
correct
was
it,
good.
because I used to take.
Mr. Chair.
I'll get to
To the
the
beach.
a little bit.
And then count that as.
You can't use stamp, can you?
She lived in 96 too.
What's
Burlington
that?
one
Man,
time.
Wow.
You do Spring stand. Okay,
Go ahead and take off.
if all of our signature pages on the abstracts are around and turned in, we'll proceed on with other business. There are other business before our board meeting today, our absentee meeting that you may have.
I just want to mention, we've got Elkin and Mount Airy set up. If you see the trailer, the disaster relief trailer that they were doing collections for at the Mount Airy early voting site, it should be moved by early in the morning. It's blocking the entire building. The view of the buildings from the road, so I've spoken with Sandy every day this week. Get that moved, because it's got to be moved.
Okay. I can't think of when.
Well, it takes up parking spaces too,
How's-
high priority parking spaces. And I know in the morning, when the campaigners and the candidates set up their tents, I'm afraid it's gonna get blocked in and then it can't get moved. Let's just all say a prayer tonight. It gets moved, but, so we'll set up Dobson, the last one, tomorrow
These are early voting.
for early voting sites, yes.
Where's the one in Mount Airy?
It's there at the government center behind Aldi grocery store
Oh,
on State Street. And then Elkin is at the Elkin Rescue Squad.
How's our western counties? Are they ready?
Well, I will report on that, all full-time staff and two, part-time poll workers went to Watauga County Saturday, and we distributed information from Watauga County Board of Elections. Their board had an emergency meeting on Friday to accept us as a MAT team. So we could go into, I was at a community center. They were at churches, schools, different places all over Watauga. We split up in bipartisan teams. Well, I say that. a lot of us are unaffiliated, but they put a major party person with those of us that are unaffiliated. Alamance County also assisted and Surrey County. It,
Yeah,
Well,
thank you for doing that.
we all saw different things, but when you got out of Boone, like out of the town limits, it really changed.
Hmm.
And I'll be
For the worse.
It's a
for the
worst,
worst.
yeah.
It is going to be a long, long time. The people that came to the community center where I was coming to get meals and coming to get supplies and coming to use internet to pay their bills.
Yeah.
So they have no way to pay their bills. No internet connection, no phone, no anything. So
I mean, they did these companies like.
they're still,
They didn't.
they're still
get the
working.
bills Temporarily, hold the bills.
well, there's other bills, you know,
Yeah, I know.
to pay, but, and it was just, there's devastation, just a little ways out of town for sure. But I will be honest, we had some interest, but we also had some that said, last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
And actually, it's been a good reprieve. This has been one lady did say, and she was not hateful, she was nice. She said, that's been the one good thing about the storm is that we've had a reprieve from the political noise.
Understandable.
We were there till, I guess we got home around 6:30 that night. We prepared to spend the night. We made hotel reservations and everything, but Watauga County, the two Board of Elections members, staff members that assisted us said, you know, we just needed a break. We need Sunday to rest, and we totally understood. So we just came on back.
the people that you came in contact with on Saturday, that you had flyers or information or
We did.
information sheets for their voting in the county, what they're able to do.
To let them know what precincts were gonna be normal, open like always, and it was all but one election day site was gonna be able to be open, and all, I think it was six early voter sites, but all that they had advertised were gonna get to be open.
That's amazing.
So we gave the schedules out, we gave precinct lists out, we gave, sample ballots out.
So hopefully that information going back into the community,
Will
they will,
spread.
they will get that out to hopefully their neighbors.
Yeah.
Check on Avery.
I was the opposite. I was between Boone and Banner Hill, so I was a different direction.
Bannerell was pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah. We thought we were gonna be going to Avery County
Mm.
too, but I think staff just needed the weekend they had a lot of personal damage, you know, all the roads. You just look. There's no shoulder, there's nothing under you. And there's just cones randomly in the road to alert you that, oh, be careful, there's nothing there on the side of the road. So if you meet a car, you just have to stop and wait. Because they couldn't do anything else, you know, they can't, they're maxed out on supplies and people and.
I just looked up the power and it's only showing 2 counties. Mitchell and Yancey's got.
Out of power.
25%.
Mitchell and Yancey,
Yeah.
and Avery were definitely hit hard. And you know, it was everybody in our district but us that we had power outage, you know, but that was it. Very lucky.
Makes you appreciate what you got, don't it?
Simple
The
thing,
same thing.
most important.
Big problem they're gonna have too is most of those houses didn't have flood insurance.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no. That's what they were talking about up there.
That's the tragedy.
They're trying to get a pass on that for insurance companies. to make it fair.
Any other questions for Michelle on the, storm relief work in the other counties and their outreach? I know Watauga, Matt appreciated you all coming up and benefiting. I know they'd like to have you probably some more, as they get into the election day, but
Yeah, we told them this would be the only weekend we could make anything work as early voting started, so. They were appreciative. They had some of their 3 or 4 good poll workers that assisted, was with us as part of a MAT team.
Alamance County, far away, that was nice of them.
They were 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were 3 hours away.
Oh,
The director and 2 of her 6, 7 full-time staff. But it was 3 of them.
thank all of you for doing that.
It was a beautiful day up there, but
Okay. Anything? else on other business? Anything from the board? On other business?
Sure.
Okay. Yep, we added to the agenda at the beginning of a meeting, a closed session for personnel. So if there is nothing else for the agenda item, other business, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. And staff can remain, staff can continue in the closed session during this closed session, please. So Eddie,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into closed session.
have a motion to go into closed session, and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of going into closed session, please say aye. Aye. We are now in closed session. Does anybody need a break?
With y'all's indulgence, I'm gonna take a long break.
on a drive.
Long break back home.
Jimmy?
Jimmy, thank you.
Jerry, I'm sorry.
We're up here. Okay, we're back on.
Okay,
No, state.
we're out of closed session. And we had no votes or motions during closed session to discuss personnel matters. And we're back in open session. So now I entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close tonight's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second to close tonight's absentee meeting of October 15th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now closed. We thank you all.
Thank you all so much.